Okay, well, can we talk about how sad Jodie is? So if you've never seen Daria, there's this character named Jodie Landon.
I'm president of the French Club, vice president of student council, editor of yearbook, and I'm also on the tennis team.
On the surface, Jodie has the ideal high school life. She's smart, popular, she's involved in all these activities, but she's never really enthusiastic about anything, really. You almost never even see this character smile. And it's interesting because she's like a minor character on the show, but she is clearly going through it. I'm watching this show like, is Jodie okay? But she's not okay. We do get some background. We know she's under a ton of pressure from her snobby, conservative parents.
You want to go to college to relax? That doesn't sound like my honor society daughter.
Relax socially. Stop being the black kid and just be a kid.
Both of her parents are rich and successful people who expect perfection out of their daughter, but don't always consider how she feels about the situation.
So I was thinking that instead of taking college prep classes, volunteering at the hospice, and being a camp counselor for special needs kids, I could take it easy. Maybe even go to the beach.
That workload doesn't sound very realistic.
She forgot the 20-hour-a-week internship at the congressman's office.
Oh, yeah. Nope.
Out of the question.
We also learn about Jodie's insecurity about being one of the only black people at her school and probably the entire town, and her feeling pressured into being that so-called model minority.
At home, I'm Jodie. I can say or do whatever feels right. But at school, I'm the queen of the Negroes, the perfect African-American teen, the role model for all of the other African-American teens at Lawndale. Oops! Where'd they go?
Jodie serves as an interesting counterpoint to the main character, Daria, throughout the series. Daria's whole thing is that she's very cynical and pessimistic. She thinks the world is broken and that most people are too shallow to care. And as a result, Daria shows very little interest in being ambitious or social.
Oh, come, Daria. You must have some goal.
My goal is not to wake up at 40 with the bitter realization that I've wasted my life in a job I hate because I was forced to decide on a career in my teens.
Jodie, on the other hand, basically believes that life is what you make it. And even if things aren't always fair, you've got to do your best with what you're given.
You may spare yourself some pain by cutting everyone off, but you miss out on a lot of good stuff, too.
Look, Jodie, I'm too smart and too sensitive to live in a world like ours at a time like this with a sister like mine. Maybe I do miss out on stuff, but this attitude is what works for me now.
Then you'll understand what works for me now.
But like I said, she doesn't seem super excited about it. She only has this attitude because she feels like she's required to. Because in her mind, the alternative is fulfilling the low expectations society has for black people. There are a few episodes where Jodie's values get tested. The best example is this episode where she's partnered with Daria for a class assignment where the goal is to get a business loan.
You're what we call high-risk applicants. I really don't think the bank will give you a loan. Unless, Daria, you want to ask your father to co-sign for it.
I don't think I can do that. He's already had one heart attack.
Oh, well then. I'm sorry.
What about my father?
What about him? Does he know anything about business?
He helped me put together this proposal that you claimed was so impressive.
Your father's not Andrew Landon, is he?
That's him.
The folding coffee cup guy?
Yes, that's my dad.
Well then, Jodie, you've got business savvy in your blood. Why don't I run your plan by my boss and see what he thinks? Maybe we can work something out.
Why? You don't give loans to high-risk applicants. Unless maybe you're hoping you'll get a little business from their fathers.
Now, Jodie...
My father's the same high-risk color that I am, you know.
But the next time she tries to get a loan, she uses a different tactic.
Yes, we're very excited about our idea. And we've put together a comprehensive business plan with the help of my father. Andrew Landon?
Oh, the folding coffee cup guy?
And then the stubbornly principled Daria confronts Jodie about her behavior in this situation.
You called him a hypocrite, and we walked out.
That's right.
Only to go into a second bank where the first words out of your mouth were your father's name.
What are you getting at, Daria?
Well, which was more hypocritical? The first guy's changing his tune when he found out who your father was, or you making sure the second guy knew who your father was before he formed an opinion?
Are you calling me a hypocrite?
No, I'm just saying...
Hey, our assignment was to get a loan, not save the world. We were supposed to approach an adult financial situation like adults, and that's exactly what I did.
I think this episode really sums up the inner conflict of Jodie. She represents the idea of pragmatic assimilation. It's not ideal to have to name drop your father to disarm a potentially racist lender, but if that's what it takes to get ahead, then maybe you've got to consider it. Jodie's parents seemingly overcame the racial barriers that hindered them, no doubt using similar tactics. So Jodie feels pressure to achieve something similar. Jodie doesn't feel like she has the privilege of saying F the system like Daria does. In that episode, Daria does come to accept Jodie's point of view.
It was being flexible enough to tailor our approach to what would make the bank officer feel comfortable about lending us money.
But that's the beauty of this show. It makes you think. It's unclear who is actually correct. Both Daria and Jodie have a good point. And these are questions that real people have to think about. Do I demand to be treated with dignity even if it limits my opportunities? Or are there times where you ought to just grin and bear it? And perhaps after you've paid your dues, then you can use the resources you've gained to promote the things you actually care about. Jodie has leaned heavily towards the grin and bear it side of things because she feels a duty to be a model representative of the Black community.
What are you guys doing this summer?
2 internships, volunteer community service, a part-time job, and in my spare time, golf lessons.
Jodie's boyfriend is this guy, Mac, a football player who is also a Black person. Mac is smart and reasonable, just like Jodie, and they have probably the least toxic relationship on the entire show. Mac is a much less developed character compared to Jodie, but we see hints of his struggles as well. For example, this show takes place in an upper-class suburb, and so most of the characters are from pretty well-off families, but it's implied that Mac is less well off than most of his peers, including his girlfriend Jodie.
Aren't you working with young Mac?
I don't know. He's kind of bad with money. Like he's been overdrawn on his allowance for a while now.
How long?
Since 3rd grade.
I'm pretty sure that's not how allowance works. Jodie, I think your boyfriend is just broke. And while I said Mac and Jodie have a good relationship, there's still insecurity there under the surface. In the Daria Diaries, which is a companion book for the show, yeah, I ended up liking this show so much I read the damn companion books. And in one of them, there's an editorial written from Jodie's point of view where she writes, "Do you often feel like you are playing a part in hiding your true self? Are you constantly asking yourself rhetorical questions? And why are you dating the captain of the football team? Because you like him, or because he's who he is and you're who you are and others don't care to question the equation?" Damn, Jodie. But it's also revealed in the Daria database, the second companion book, of course, that Mac has some bitterness about how Jodie prioritizes her self-imposed obligations over their relationship. He has as one of his New Year's resolutions, "I won't let it bother me that Jodie puts student council, homework, tennis club, French club, the debate team, and just about every other damn thing ahead of me." We actually see this play out in the first Daria TV movie, Is It Fall Yet?, where the students take their summer break. Jodie's summer is fully booked with activities, none of which she's particularly enthusiastic about.
Jodie, what have you been up to this summer?
Soup kitchen, crisis center, Congressman Sachs' office, fundraising, golf lessons.
Isn't she something?
Meanwhile, Mac is kind of embarrassed because he has to get a summer job running an ice cream truck.
Mac owes his father some money, and I think it's very conscientious of him to take that job and pay him back.
Yeah, he gets the money, I get the humiliation.
It's an interesting dynamic. Jodie's family is rich, so she has more options, yet she is still obligated to do a bunch of stuff she doesn't really want to do. Meanwhile, Mac is forced to do something he doesn't want to do out of financial necessity. Jodie is so busy that she barely gets to spend time with Mac during the summer, which she regrets, but she also doesn't do anything about it. The only closure to the situation happens because Mac is such a kind and understanding guy.
These are for you.
Oh, that's sweet. I've missed you so much.
Wow, I gotta buy you flowers more often.
So Jodie is kind of in this place where she feels like she has to do everything and do it right, but she never gets to enjoy any part of it. And as a result, she seems pretty miserable. Whether at home or at school, she's always surrounded by people who don't understand her. She's popular and she has a lot of friends, but she still seems quite lonely. She just sounds so sad every time she speaks.
Assignment completed.
I've heard a lot of people praise Jodie as a well-written black TV character, especially for a time when that sort of thing was often hard to come by. And I agree. One of the things that makes this show so good is the roster of interesting supporting characters. They literally put effort into giving pretty much every character layers to their personality. But I'd say Jodie is a lot more complex than most of the other secondary characters, which is probably why they intended to spin her off into her own TV show, which never happened. And then they said they were going to make a movie, and then that plan got dropped, and now probably just isn't going to exist, which is probably for the best. The Daria universe is thoughtful and progressive, so I would expect the Jodie spinoff to be as well, but I'm afraid they try too hard to avoid being accused of wokeness or whatever, and then we just end up with another Velma situation.
I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes.
But I feel like people really don't talk about how tragic this character is. It's interesting looking at a character like Jodie through a modern lens. I think black people, especially around millennial age and older, can identify with Jodie's issues. Even though we know black people are not a monolith and one of us doesn't represent all of us, a lot of us were taught that white people still might see it that way, and so we should be on our best behavior when in mixed company. Because if white people think one of us is bad, they're gonna think all of us are bad. But if we can prove that we're smart and hardworking just like everyone else, then just maybe they'll see us as human beings. And that's basically what Jodie's going through. It seems like these days more and more black people are starting to reject this way of thinking, which is probably a good thing, because you really can't win if you're trying to impress people that you think assume the worst to begin with. And if you try to, you end up like Jodie, stretching yourself thin and making yourself unhappy for the benefit of others. So then there's the question, if Jodie is so unsatisfied, why doesn't she make a change? Part of it, and maybe most of it, is of course all the pressure put on her by her parents. And I guess there's nothing wrong with having high expectations for your kids, especially when they've proven they have a lot of potential. But as a parent, you should also pay attention when your child is clearly overwhelmed, and Jodie's parents seem blissfully unaware of how unhappy she is.
I failed to convince my mother and father to let me have the summer off.
Excellent. And see, you learned that failure isn't so bad now, is it?
No, I learned that my parents would rather I drop dead from exhaustion than miss the opportunity to shred some bribe-taking congressman's incriminating phone bills.
But a lot of Jodie's stress is kind of self-imposed. She probably doesn't have to do as much as she does, but we get a hint about why she does in this episode where the town has their homecoming parade.
Isn't it great how they keep electing us homecoming king and queen every year?
Yes, it's such a generous and enlightened gesture. It completely makes up for the town's utter lack of diversity, in my mind.
And we're playing into it.
Damn college applications.
This is so humiliating.
Maybe we should start waving again.
Why play into this stupid charade any more than we have to?
We don't have to do anything. Hell, we don't have to be up here.
That's actually a good point. What's the worst they could do to us?
What happened?
Oh, what the hell? We may be tokens, but we're damn good-looking ones.
Can't argue with that.
I love this show. This scene is like 5 seconds long, but it's super powerful. In case it's unclear, Jodie changes her mind about participating in the homecoming parade when she sees a little black girl in the crowd. Even though Mac and Jodie know that they were only made homecoming king and queen as a token gesture, what that little girl sees is a couple of black people who are thriving in a world where the odds are stacked against them. Even in a whitewashed town like Lawndale, a black girl can become homecoming queen. It would probably be a pivotal moment in that little girl's life. And similar to what I said before, I don't think the show is arguing that this is necessarily correct or that Jodie should be happy about being a token homecoming queen. This is just how the character feels. It's complex, but understandable. And this is real. It's kind of a meta moment, actually, because as the comments on my last video prove, a lot of black women love this show, in large part because it has a cool, smart black girl character on it that they loved as kids.
How to win friends and influence people.
It's not bad. It's about all the things a good attitude can get you.
The show eventually attempts to give Jodie some grace in the Daria finale.
Prestmore, the dream of dreams. What's wrong?
It's a top school and everything, but I'd really rather go to Turner.
Your father's alma mater? He must love that.
He doesn't know I applied.
Why?
Because he wouldn't let me go anyway. He says not even a great African-American college like Turner can beat the Crestmore name on a resume. Do you need me for something? I'll get up.
We just want to talk to you about Mac.
He's got quite an imagination. He seems to think you want to go to Turner so much you applied there behind our backs.
Look, I was just trying to help.
Yeah? Well, as a result of your butting in, I'm going to Turner. I'm going to Turner.
You are? That's great.
My parents said if I was so upset about Crestmore that I'd applied to Turner behind their backs, they had to respect my feelings.
And this is basically how Jodie's story ends on the show. Of course, they were intending to spin off a new series, but I guess it would have been a bummer if Jodie never got any wins over the course of the original show. So Jodie finally gets some agency in her story, but there's no reason to think her parents are going to be any less hard on her going forward. And I'm sure being the rich black girl from an all-white town is going to present brand new challenges for her at a historically black college where she's going to meet black people from all walks of life and be confronted with ideas and behaviors that she has literally never seen before. But that's what college is for, I guess. Anyway, that's about it. Jodie is a very interesting character on a show full of interesting characters. She's a good reminder that someone can be strong and seeming on top of things, but still lost and unhappy. Jodie definitely should have her own show. She's one of those fictional characters I wish I could check up on and make sure she's all right, but I think the time for that may have come and gone. So let's just assume that she's thriving. I'm curious what you guys think of this take.
My friends, the time has come. It's time to abolish answering the question, what's up, with not much.
That's Ike Ufomadu, who is becoming one of my favorite up-and-coming comedians. He has this dry, almost anti-humor that's pure genius. Plus, he kind of has a point.
And I say this for one simple reason. It's just not true. It never has been true. It never will be true. And it's not true right now.
That's him on the first episode of the comedy panel show Abolish Everything, where comedians take turns giving presentations about what they'd like to see removed from society. It's really funny. I've been enjoying every episode. You should check it out. It's available exclusively on Nebula, which is the video platform that's owned by its creators and enabling them to make awesome stuff that probably wouldn't exist otherwise. Everything from comedy panel shows like Abolish Everything, to stage plays like The Prince, to films like Identities, to game shows like The Getaway. There's a little something there for everyone. And Nebula originals are all high quality productions, you know, stuff that has a real budget. So if you subscribe to Nebula, you get to watch dope shows like Abolish Everything or any of the other amazing original shows on Nebula, but you also get to help normalize the celebration of independent creators getting an opportunity to make cool stuff on their own terms. If that sounds like something you'd like to be involved in, you can sign up for Nebula by using my link, go.nebula.tv/T1J. And if you use that link, you can get 40% off an annual subscription, which comes out to only $3 a month. You can find that link in the description, or you can scan this QR code to go check out Ike on Abolish Everything right now.